For a long time, I told people that I stopped writing because I didn't have the time. That I stopped reading because I'd outgrown it and I had more important things to focus on. While I fabricated this lie to others, I don't know how or when, but I started lying to myself as well. I blamed the school for giving so much work that I didn't have the time. I blamed social media for my short attention span. And I blamed the English teachers for forcing the creativity out of me one criteria at a time. But this wasn't the truth. I didn't stop writing because I lost my voice. I stopped writing because I learned that my silence was more efficient. My silence, it would never fail. My silence would not be criticized, and my silence would definitely not compare itself to other writers and question its worth. And in a world where output overpowered honesty, my silence wasn't the smart choice, it was the safe choice. A safe choice made in fear. A fear that somewhere out there is a chatbot that can write cleaner, faster, and better than I ever could. A fear that with the right words entered through a prompt, a painting, a photo, a poem, all could be generated. Instantly, effortlessly, and free of cost. When I realized this, something shifted. I started questioning everything. Why spend hours on creating something fragile when perfection can be generated instantly? Why write when vocabulary matters more than vulnerability? And why bother being an artist anymore? The thing is, I'm not asking these questions as a critic watching from outside, but rather as someone whose voice shrinked in search of these answers. And now this is where I must move away from abstractions to the raw, real truth. When I must remove my mask because there is something I haven't told you yet. When writing this talk, I used AI. I had the right ideas and thoughts, but whatever I wrote, it didn't feel good enough or moving enough, and that's when I entered the prompt. The prompt in search of the right words to make one listening feel something, to move them and to make them ponder. I realize the irony of it now, how my talk, highly revolving around the faith in human creativity, was written by outsourcing my own voice. And funnily enough, when writing, it even asked me if I needed help to make it sound more human, more relatable. And this was my mask. Unmasked, the truth was much simpler. I didn't feel that I was good enough. I felt disposable. And this wasn't because I didn't love how demanding art was, but rather because I had seen up close how much soul it really required. I come from a family of artists. My dad a photographer, my mom a creative director, dancer, and painter. I was introduced to the world of art before I even fully understood it. I grew up on sets observing more than 25 people work for that one flawless photo. I saw my dad wait for the right light, the right moment, the right angle, knowing that if he had missed it, it would be gone forever. I tried classical dance, dabbled at ballet and literature, moved on to drawing and found my place there. While others saw the art world as a hobby, I saw it as survival. I saw my parents work late nights, travel for days, face rejection emails, and have months of hard work being reduced to a nice or a can you do it faster? And through all this, I saw the passion that my dad once had when holding a camera quietly turned into practicality. But even when his passion declined, he never stopped creating, we just stopped noticing. And his work, he never lost depth, we just stopped slowing down long enough to look at it. And it wasn't just his work that we forgot about, it was the work of all struggling artists out there that we stopped. Art fairs began being cancelled, major art houses began closing, and the global art market declined 12%. And behind that decline were artists who stopped applying, photographers who stopped hoping, and writers who stopped believing that their work was worth waiting for. And this decline, it wasn't sudden, neither was it accidental. It happened because we began valuing output over process, speed over soul, and perfection over presence. We applauded at instant art. AI-generated music topped Billboard charts. AI-generated artwork began being sold at auction houses, and AI as co-authors even became a trend. But the thing is, AI didn't create this mindset. It revealed it. And AI, it never replaced artists. It replaced an artist's hesitation. And machines, they didn't erase creativity, they erased an artist's hesitation. So maybe That's why I chose silence. Because my silence, it can't be judged or replaced, but my silence couldn't stand on a stage and move anyone either. So I want to ask you something, not as an audience or an onlooker, but as a human. When was the last time you didn't create something? Not because you couldn't, but because you were afraid it wouldn't matter. Honestly, for me, the answer reveals that the mask I wore wasn't practicality, it was fear. I dismissed my ideas, labeling them unworthy because what if it weren't good enough? I stopped speaking up in class because what if somebody else had something better to say? And frankly, I stopped writing completely because what if the reader couldn't relate? What if they found grammatical mistakes and spelling errors? But this fear of mine was never a valid enough reason to stop creating. Because art wasn't about those errors. Art wasn't about being the fastest or the cleanest, and it definitely wasn't about painting inside those lines. Art existed because it felt. It felt pain, love, happiness, it carried those emotions. Words were never just words, lyrics weren't plainly sentences, and colors, they weren't decorations. They were meant to feel. To look at a painting and wonder how much time an artist spent behind that. To read and to know that you're not alone. To listen and to think, wow, I felt the same, but I never had the right words for it. So maybe I was wrong. Maybe the question isn't why bother being an artist anymore, but rather it is what kind of world we become if we stop. And so today, unmasked, I choose to write again. Not to compete with machines, but to remind myself that my voice doesn't need to be perfect to be human. And that is something no algorithm could ever replace. Thank you.